All right. Hello. Thank you for joining us. You are joining us for the post-interview for Mental Illness Matters Radio. Here with Pearson Phillips. Would you want me to call you Pearson or Pierce?
Pierson, Pierce, doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, this is so much video is so much better anyway. I think it's so much more interactive, and like I have this massive delay anyway on the on the podcast, so it can create some problems. But I always love doing these interview wrap-ups, and not everybody's always willing to do it. So I just want to thank you for doing this, and I also just want to thank you for everything that you do in spreading advocacy. Like I said before on the show, you're the youngest person I've ever had on the show at 11 years old. And that to me is just such a testament of all the people that you're going to be able to touch, all the hope that you're going to be able to spread. And so I'm just super excited to have you here. So do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Pierson Phillips. I'm 11 years old and I have Tourette Syndrome. I also have comorbids that go along with Tourette Syndrome, OCD, chronic anxiety, what's the other one? Depression, and, well, I guess I'll tell you something.
And all the things that come along with that. Because it's like a long list once you even add one of those. So one of the things that we were talking about here is how people manage their mental illness. So if you wanted to weigh in on that, I have some comments about that too. But as you and I both know, and your mom who's there as well, it's really difficult managing a mental illness and trying to show the outside world that we're all put together and everything's a-okay. So weigh in on your thoughts about that, Pearson. How do you manage your mental illness, and what have you seen in other people that are dealing with their mental illness in the real world?
How I deal with my mental illness is, on my Tourette side, my OCD, is whenever I'm in public, I will try to ignore the people there who might be looking at me or something. Just ignore them, not stare. I mean, a couple times you do have to do that, but not like look at them. Just try to feel not feel so trapped by it. Not feel trapped by other people. Now the same thing goes along with my OCD. For my anxiety, I can't really control that. It just happens. Nothing I can do about it, as far as I'm aware of. Depression, I'll usually try to hide it. Try to, kind of like holding in my tics, I'll hold it in, and then until we get to the car or something, I will, technically speaking, let it out.
I agree with you on all fronts, especially the depression. Pierce, I've had my disorder now for 30 years, and I would say a majority of the time I hide the depression part. And I don't know if that just comes with the territory of depression. I don't really know. I don't know if I just feel shame and embarrassment and guilt, I'm feeling horrible. I should get up though and do all the things that normal people do. But when we're depressed, we can't get up.
Yeah.
Like it's a different beast, isn't it?
Much different. And of course, you pair that with anxiety, and then you pair that with ADHD, it kind of gets confused in a way. Your anxiety, which triggers your depression can trigger the ADHD. ADHD triggers it.
You don't have ADHD.
I never said I had ADHD. Oh. I'm saying whenever you put ADHD into that, that's what happens. Sorry.
It's a big cycle.
Yes.
So tell me what it's like when you experience Tourette Syndrome. And so, you explained to us in the interview what that is and how it manifests with you. When you were saying sometimes you'll be out in public and you have to ignore people, tell me what that's like. Give me an example of an experience where that has happened.
Well, for example, I don't know why, but let's say you're going into a Walmart or Target. They're usually crowded with people, and the more people there are, usually the more ticks you're gonna have. So you're gonna have ticks. What I would do is walk on, get the stuff you need, just not try to pay attention. Like, don't like look away, because then it gets people kind of like what is he doing? What is he or she doing? But whenever you like look at a couple people and that's normal, they don't think that there's really anything wrong except for maybe a couple ticks here and there. Then you just kind of go on through that, and then once you're done, you can do whatever you want, basically.
Is that tough for you? Is that something that you had to learn?
Yeah.
Sorry. I have a cat that stop meowing and I don't know what to do. I mean, I would think, moving into the topic of labeling, I think that you would probably handle it better than I would, and at your age than my age. And that is such a testament to how far along that you are. More of just this acceptance and understanding. When I have, Pierce, you're going to be able to identify with this. Like, for instance, having an anxiety attack in public, probably the worst possible thing you can imagine, right?
Yes.
I mean, and so whenever this happens to me.
What happened?
I mean, I think to myself, where's the nearest escape? What can I do? Get me out. I don't want anyone to see this happening. I don't know what to do. And I usually just, it's like fight, flight, or freeze. I'm a fleer. I mean, I'm going to flight. And so it's just hard to know. And it's hard. I guess it's hard to accept people's reactions to things that you can't control. How do you do that?
I forgot really now what I was going to say.
We got animals all over the place.
Well, at least my cat isn't acting up. Just the dogs. I forgot what I was going to say. I do not know what I was going to say.
Well, that's okay. I mean, let's move on to the labeling part.
Okay.
So we both know that in life, it's easy to be labeled with what we have instead of who we are, right?
Right.
So what's that like for you at your age? I mean, for me, it's really difficult. And my job actually is to talk about my experience with mental illness and to help people and their experience with mental illness. And in that tight-knit community, it can be really accepting and great. But then once you move out of the community into like the real world and start talking about the things that in my diagnosis, it can get really, really sketchy. So what's it like for you at your age and, in the school setting and everything, when it comes to the label of having Tourette Syndrome, OCD, and all of the other things that you are living with?
Well, they don't understand like the misunderstood. Like the majority of them, like OCD, anxiety, depression, Tourette's. There's a couple more, but those are the ones I'm probably going to be talking about. They are going to be talked about like, kind of like, what was I trying to say?
Like negatively?
Kind of like negatively, like they're going to talk to someone, they're going to talk to someone that is, they're kind of be like, now what they're probably not realizing, but what it feels to us, and something I can get people who don't have a disability in any way can get to understand. It's kind of like if someone's in a wheelchair and they can't do something, and they really want to do it, and you're just going to say, I'm going to do it. Of course they're going to get frustrated at you. Of course they are, because that's, if they can't do that and it's something they want to do, that's what they do it. Not only that, but I do have a part of my speech here that does talk about it. Is it all right if I say it?
Please, go right ahead.
If you were to ask a group of people what words came to mind when they hear mental illness, they might say crazy, psycho, or dangerous. But then ask them what they think when they hear the word cancer, survivor, support, and courageous. Both are serious biologically based diseases, and both can kill. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, and birth defects combined. So that is the pronunciation. Okay.
So you're basically just saying that people just don't understand that mental illness is really an illness.
Right. It's kind of like if you were in 2012, this is. It's kind of like talking to someone who has Ebola, saying that it's kind of saying, I don't know why I'm talking about it like this, but it's kind of like saying that
because you're 11.
Like I'm fine. Like you're saying it in their face. Like you're saying I'm fine. And then of course I don't have this and stuff. So of course people are gonna. You're misunderstanding it basically.
Yep.
You're not understanding that it's serious.
Yeah.
But
I love it. I love that part of your speech. That's awesome. And especially comparing it to more of a physical illness, because I will say, Pierce, one of the things that happens that drives me, that just makes me feel so upset is that when people think, well, maybe you could just try harder and then you could control it. And I just think to myself, what? Nobody would say that to someone that had a physical ailment, a quote unquote physical ailment, because I'm not separating mental illness. But yeah, so that's really relatable. And I'm so glad that you got to say that and that people got to hear it coming from you. How did you think people responded to that and to your speech in general?
I think they responded in a way of being more surprised, because most people wouldn't think of that demonstration that I know of, or at least I think. Because you wouldn't think about that. And
what?
Yeah. And actually, how you were saying, maybe think about controlling it, and maybe you can, and also relating it to and both can kill. Well, my friend Olivia has Tourette's, and one of her tics is she starts ticking kind of like a claw shape around an area that she has scabs.
She picks.
Basically picking. She had to be hospitalized for 5 days because of her picking. She had a bone and blood infections. Whenever someone says, at least you don't have cancer, that it's not. She almost lost her leg. It's worse than people realize.
And I think, you know what else? And I'm jumping on the bandwagon here. I'm even creating a bandwagon here. I think what makes me mad too is just with your comment. People say things like, people die from diseases, physical diseases, but then they just say, oh, well, when someone dies from mental illness, they're selfish. Oh, and I'm like, if you only knew, like, the suffering that people go through, not to mention the stigma thrown on top of it, which is exactly what we're talking about, the labeling, or people around us just think, oh, just stop that, or oh, I don't want to be associated with that person because of these behaviors. And it is the exact same thing. It's just a different way of death, I guess, is a way to put it. What do you think?
I'm agreeing with what you're saying entirely, but no, this sounds, anyway, not agreeing with you. I'm trying. But whenever you see someone with a mental illness and he or she's in a wheelchair, like, for example, something with Parkinson's. but like a movement disorder, so they have to be in the wheelchair. And then you see then you see them come up and maybe have a couple of ticks here and there or something like that. They're gonna be like, a couple of people might even come up to you and say, that wheelchair could have been used for someone who actually needs it. Well,
Invisible.
I have a disability. I've needed to have a wheelchair a couple times because I have tics where my legs go crazy. So if someone were to ever say that, it is definitely hard, especially whenever you have a mental illness that really does affect you.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Pierce? What advice can you give people who are watching this in order to learn to accept mental illness and to start to change our mind about the stigma of mental illness? Give us some words of wisdom.
Talk about it.
I know.
No.
Oh.
You tell her what you think.
Well, especially whenever you have a group, which has definitely helped me, definitely try to find a group that understands. Like let's say you have depression and there's anxiety, and there's a group that, you know, is a bunch of people with what is it called? I forgot. Depression. Well, at least go over there and maybe talk to them or something. They're gonna understand. They're probably gonna understand it more than anyone out in public is gonna know. Not only that, but if your doctor says, "Oh, don't label him," which we've had before, just say, "I want an answer so I can maybe help this." Just even though what the majority is saying doesn't mean you have to do anything.
Yep. Love it. And there is power and healing in knowing that you're not alone.
Yes, there is.
So any final words from you and your mother? I'd love to hear her final words as well.
Oops, you falling off?
I don't know.
Well, I had to say, and I'm over here on the side here, you can't see me, but or you can kind of. I think just talking about it openly. I'm a hairstylist, and yesterday I had a client in who knows obviously about my PTSD, knows about my son and his issues, and she started talking about how she'd gone to her doctor. This time of year is hard for her. That she said, here for the next couple, let's do this for a couple months. Let's add to your prescription. She was very open about, you know, her depression that she deals with. And I stopped working on her for a moment and said, this is just absolutely amazing that we are speaking so openly, because the almost 20 years that I've been doing hair, I've never had someone sit down and openly discuss it. Who's openly discussed it like that. It was great. It was actually a huge difference to me. And I think talking is a huge thing, not being afraid to talk. And, you know, you mentioned the suicide. Pearson's in control of the camera.
I'm trying.
You mentioned the issues with suicide. He's handing it over.
There you go.
He
can't really see it.
There was after his speech at the Kaufman Foundation. I was at work the next day, and we had a client who had come in. They had just left a funeral for a 13-year-old boy who had committed suicide. And the comments that you were making just a little bit ago, I got to hear. That was so selfish. That was stupid. I would, you know, if that were my kid, I would go kick their butt, even in, you know, and I just thought, I stopped what I was doing and walked over and said, that's not, I stopped.
First of all, what I was about to say about that,
I stood up.
And that one person saying,
thank you for doing that.
First of all, you'd probably be so upset that he or she even did that you wouldn't even have the strength to do that. That's all I have to say.
Right. Yeah, they would be very upset. But people, like, what does a 13-year-old have to be so upset about that would lead them to this? And I thought this was amazing that people really didn't understand that this stuff affects children. Most of us who, as an adult,
average age of onset of mental illness is 12. So
yeah,
these kids are suffering. I mean, I was 8.
I remember my first panic attack.
Speak up.
Your panic attack was kind of actually very responsible.
Well,
It's
see, but
very well. It's
justifiable
very well
when we justify a lot of things to ourselves when we have anxiety. But
her first panic attack was when
I was in 6. I was 11. That was his age. But we were going to get back to the suicide issue, the talking about it and letting people know that no, there were probably signs. There were probably things that he had said or done, and so you should be more upset with why weren't the people around him listening? And part of Pearson's speech, when he got to the part where he told people what he wanted them to do, was letting them know that that people need to listen to children. You need to listen to them, and the kids have to be able to trust. They have to be able to trust the adults that they're talking to, including teachers, doctors, parents, and
to believe them. They have to know that they believe them.
That it's real, and don't just say, "Oh, it's just kids. Oh, you'll get over it." I think
It's just a phase.
And don't get me wrong, middle school years are tough for everybody, but throw in some mental illness and let's just see how much worse it is for those kids. And especially if they're not believed, especially if people, if I would be an irresponsible parent if my son had diabetes and I didn't explain to him how to manage it, if I didn't explain to other people how to make sure that he was okay when he wasn't with me. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna jump around. And I feel that with mental illness, people don't want to talk about it. They don't, and he's done. They don't want to talk to us. They don't want us to talk about it. They don't want. So I think that's why I think it's important. I don't think it should be treated in conversation any differently than other illnesses.
Absolutely. Well, we need to wrap up. So give us some final words. I don't know if Pierce left.
He ran out of the room. He's
I appreciate him being here and for you being here. He's so lucky to have you, and also thank you for all that you're doing to speak out too. And I'm glad that we got some FaceTime as well. So
yes, I was trying to stay away from the FaceTime, but okay. I think it's important that parents listen to the kids and let them talk. And we're not ashamed of who he is. And I don't want him to ever be ashamed of who he is. And a lot of people are taught that when they have a mental illness, that it's shameful, and it's not. And I think the more people start speaking out, the more that can change. He's 11, and people will listen to kids more than they will adults. I can give the same speech he does, and they're not going to react the same way they do to a child.
Exactly.
So he and his friend Olivia that he spoke about, her mother had asked if she could learn how to speak as well. And so she's done one speech with Pearson. And so these kids are getting together and they're finding each other and they're learning how to speak out and educate others about the Tourette and the mental illness. And we're hoping to help empower other children to do these things by providing a support group here in this area. So Olivia and Pearson are doing that. Mostly because I've noticed that when he gets together with other children with Tourette, the anxiety's gone. The tics he is so much more comfortable because he knows that he's accepted. And so getting these kids together, I think, can be very powerful. And if we can start that culture of starting them younger, perhaps, in the next generation or so, we can see some big changes. And that would be great for everybody.
Well, let's just keep doing it then.
There you go. We will.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, Hilaire, for everything that you do and for Pearson. And I'm just so glad to be connected to y'all. I just am excited to see what's going to come about in the next year.
Well, we never know. He didn't go looking for any of this. It just kind of happened. So we'll let him keep talking as long as he's comfortable doing it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. We'll have you both on again at some point, I'm sure. But keep doing what you're doing. And for anyone watching and listening to the interview, if you want to get in touch with either of them, please contact me and I can pass the message on to .chrissie@gmail.com, and you were listening to Mental Illness Matters Radio over at blogtalkradio.com. And thank you for tuning in. And you are listening to a show that give us 30 minutes. We'll give you a different perspective on mental illness. Have a wonderful week. Most of you are probably watching the Super Bowl, and have fun with that. But we'll see you next week with another show. Bye now.